I would actually, Lauren, very much like to bring Holly Harper forward. Um, Holly, this is Holly Harper.
Hi, Holly.
Hi, Lauren. Holly works for the Urban Design Studio for the city of Los Angeles.
Oh, so nice to meet you.
And Holly was actually on the original committee that formed the Los Angeles State Historic Park. She helped provide the community input and their studio, Dos o Tres. And she continues to commit her time and energies to making sure that our pedestrian and cycling and community engagement with the streets and the roads is taken care of and protected, and really thinking about what is this going to mean 50 years from now. So I'll let you say.
Well, that's it. Just I'm an architect, but my perspective working for the city the last couple of years has really changed. Because we have to try to imagine what we build today working for the city 50 years from now in the face of, who knows what kind of economic, social, needs for resilience, environmental needs for resilience. So
It's so interesting that you're talking about like how political time influences urbanism in a way. So that a lot of decisions that get made in terms of urban planning, urbanism in general, are made in a political time context.
2 or 4 years, but we need 50, 75, 100 years. 50 years is at a minimum, and who knows for the next century, but our historical, kind of usual average turnover for sites in the 20th century in Los Angeles was 50 years. When a small house gets smashed to build a bigger house, when a small store, that was 50 years. So it's at least 50 years or around there. I try to, it's less about aesthetics, it's more about performance. If people can't just focus on people having air conditioning, if people can't pay their electrical bills, right? You have to build buildings that can support life without more inputs. This is kind of perfect here. We're very lucky. We're not Minnesota, right? So
yeah.
How we build could really support people very sustainably here. Indoor, outdoor, high ceilings, cross ventilation, small buildings.
And do you live in Solano Canyon?
No, I live 15 minutes away, where Cypress Park and Highland Park come together in North Figueroa.
Well, what could you tell people joining us from Instagram as an urban planner and architect about Solano Canyon in relationship to Dodger Stadium, the infrastructure of LA, Elysian Park, the oldest park in LA, and also the kind of real estate trauma connected to Chavez Ravine and that story? What would you tell people about that community in relationship to stories and the cultural equity that's a part of community stabilization?
I would probably tell them that, maybe the standard narrative is there was a community here and it was very sad and they went away. It's almost like a microcosm of the development of the United States, right? That community didn't go away. They still know each other. They still, thanks to Dan Normark and him helping to, I became aware that those people, those cousins and neighbors, they're not here, but they're still a community.
Mm-hmm. So the community, you're saying that
didn't all go away,
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine who was talking about her very long marriage, more than 50 years. I asked her, how did you stay married that long? She said, just don't get divorced. And don't get divorced and you'll be married that long. But in a way, people staying put in their neighborhood, despite everything that's going on around it, is that same kind of deep roots that Solano Canyon has. And stick together and
just look after each other, even if you can't be all lovey anymore. Just stick together.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren. They should turn on their jingle, like the ice cream jingle.
Will you ask them too? That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Hey, Sarah. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, Lauren.
Hi. Is that Janet?
No, this is Jude. I have to introduce you to. This
Hello,
is
Lauren.
Lauren.
Hello.
Jude Rodriguez is a graduate of Solano Avenue Elementary.
Oh.
Is now at the new school in New York, and has been a longtime advocate for Solano Canyon and just Elysian Park and the animals and the plants, and just like lifted the voice of democracy, no matter what your age is and whether or not you can vote.
Totally.
Actually, so Jude is like my hero. She's like my teenage. You're not a teenager anymore.
No, I'm 20.
Ah, she's 20. She's 20.
Yeah, I voted for the first time this
Oh.
election. Yeah. I know, I had like a glow. I felt so good about myself, and just I did it with my mom too, and it was just a really good feeling.
What an awesome day then. Was that today?
No, it was a week ago. Like
Okay,
when we
good.
first got the ballot, I filled it out.
And
Got it mailed.
where did you drop it off?
We went to the Lincoln Heights Library, and we dropped it off there. Yeah,
And
it was fun.
That's so exciting. Well, congratulations on your first election. And
Yeah,
and
thank you.
and tell us a little bit about what you're studying and how it connects to Solano, if at all.
Okay, I'm an integrated design major, so I really appreciate like collaborating with different forms of design and materials, and I don't know, like public program and stuff. Like I love that stuff. I love community engagement and finding other bright people that have gifts and they want to like work together and explore themselves and me, like working together, like that kind of. I really appreciate that. Like,
So yeah, you're looking at a practicing in co-creation, where people can work together to kind of figure out the problems that we're challenged with as designers. Like bring it
exactly.
all together.
It's important because I understand that like our government, yes, they're trying, but us as people, us as like, it's our civic duty to like vote, and not only is it just for like the president or whatever, but it's like for acts, for certain programs for people that need it. It's super important. I don't know, it's not just about the presidential election, but it's about everything else that matters.
And do you think that your sense of commitment to your civic responsibility and your civic opportunity is coming from Solano Elementary School in any way?
Totally. I remember when I was first starting out, and I met Sarah based off of the reservoir that's here in Elysian Park, and I had to speak in downtown at City Hall because we wanted to do more with the reservoir. They were just gonna put black balls in there, and
Yeah, I
we
remember.
wanted it to be used and revitalized, like similar to Silver Lake, similar to Echo Park and stuff. But yeah, so I remember very young, I think I was in the 6th grade at City Hall, and yeah, just trying to make it happen. But it's, I don't know, it didn't work out, but it was the fact that my voice mattered, they listened to me at a young age.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I think about Solano Elementary, I think about, the fact that it's really kind of the heart center of Solano Canyon, like physically, and for so many families, that's the reason to try and stabilize your life and go there. It's a real community public school.
Exactly, yeah. We tried building like the mural here. I remember that. We tried like a little garden. Sarah, like she taught kids about like composting, and we were dealing with soil with worms, and it was like that's the enriching experience that I was privileged enough to be a part of and involved in. So I know I'm blessed to like be in this community.
Yeah. And I think it's such a model for what we need now, especially during this time of COVID, is that learning can happen in so many forms, including learning how to be outside and make soil,
Yeah,
and being able to contribute that to a community garden like the one you have in Solano Canyon.
so beautiful.
And yeah, so that's amazing. And how are you feeling about living in New York? Or are you back from New York? Or
Oh, I'm here doing like Zoom online. But one big thing in my school, we're working on like farmers markets and stuff. We have a partnership with Grow NYC. It's the marketplace on Union Square, and so we've just been talking about like just solutions that need to be made, and how to apply that here. So yeah.
fantastic.
It's great.
Well, we're so thankful that you're here to share the What the Helado Banana Split Prize
Yeah.
with
It's great to
with
talk to you.
great to talk to you and hope to be able to see you soon.
Yeah, likewise. I loved the drum circle at your studio that one time. It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for talking to me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jude. Thank you for talking to me.
Sit. Love you guys.
Bye. Love you too.
I have somebody that keeps photobombing me back here that
Oh, yes.
I'm sure
Oh,
you've met him, but like Jude, this gentleman went to Solano Elementary School, graduated from Nightingale and Lincoln and Yale and Stanford.
wow.
Justice Carlos Moreno.
Hi, Lauren.
Hello. It's so nice to see you again.
Yeah, I think we've
Thank
met before.
Yes, we've met a few times. It's so nice to see you. I think you were at the studio just before quarantine started. One of the
Yes,
nights that Lydia.
it's been a long time. Whoever realized it was gonna take this
No,
long to fit?
no. How
But
are you doing? And
I'm doing good.
what
I'm
can you
busy.
tell? What can you
About
tell
this
the Insta?
neighborhood.
Yeah, about
Yeah,
and also about your work.
my family moved into this neighborhood in 1946, and at that time, Academy Road was known as Casanova, and it was a cul-de-sac essentially, ending in Elysian Park before they made the cuts on Academy Road over to Boylston and the other side of Elysian Park. So they came in 1946. As you know, there was a housing shortage after the war, but somehow my uncle, who raised us, uh, was able to put together some money and bought a house for about $6,000. His payment was $43 a month, and he worked over here at Union Station for what was then the Railway Express Agency, and a union job, and he worked there for 43 years through 1965. So for him, it was very convenient to live here and to work down there. But I had two older sisters and two older brothers. I was the youngest of five. My sisters got married very early, like 15 or 16, here at the St. Peter's Catholic Church on North Broadway. Then I came along in 1948 and spoke Spanish as my first language. So I still speak Spanish. And went to Solano. And I still remember the names of every single teacher that I had here. It was a very nurturing school, maybe 300 students at most. And you got to know all the families. At that time, this side of the freeway was mostly Mexican and some Italian and hardly any Chinese. We always considered south of the freeway towards Broadway to be kind of the Chinese side because of the proximity of Chinatown. The center really was the church, San Conrado, that I know that Lily's mom had a lot to do with, helping it sustain itself. And that was built, renovated, I think like in 1965, 66, she could tell you. But prior to that, there was a house that the nuns lived in, and also part of the house was the actual church. And Lily says that they really moved that house from Palo Verde, La Loma on the other side of the hill. So when I tell people, they say, well, how is it that someone like you, made it to a place like Yale or Stanford? And I said, I had a very nurturing life here. Really, literally, the Elysian Park was our backyard. During the summer, we would go to the Downey Plunge down by your building. And I learned recently that the Downey Plunge was named after Governor Downey, and he was one of
Oh,
the original kind of developers in Los Angeles. Helped develop Lincoln Heights. So that Spring Street Bridge uh, was one of the first bridges across the river. There it is. Well,
yep.
that's the Broadway Bridge.
Oh, wait, Spring Street is
Yeah,
over there.
over there, right. And Broadway Bridge, and Lily's done a lot of research on this, was a wooden bridge, and it was wiped out several times until they built the new bridge, I don't know, about 100 years ago. And when they paved over the river, I think beginning in the floods of 1938, which were enormous. I mean, the Arroyo Seco was flooded, homes were lost into the Arroyo Seco and so forth. So it's a fascinating place to be in. I
Yeah,
know I've done research on the reservoirs, both the Buena Vista Reservoir and the Elysian Reservoir. And I think I was walking with Lily once on North Broadway right before crossing the bridge. And there's still a kind of a conduit right off of Broadway abutting the border of the park. And I think that was a conduit that water was pumped up to the Buena Vista Reservoir, which is no longer there, and shot down into the Zanghe Madre, the original one, which probably goes very close to your place, I think.
yeah.
'Cause you
I
can,
actually, if you can see, there's the bricks of
yeah,
the Zanja Madre that were underneath the where they excavated for the new mixed-use condos in Chinatown.
right, right.
So we salvaged the bricks so that we can build a catcher for the river when we build the water wheel. So it'll
Yeah,
fall
yeah,
into those. Do you know that those bricks are the last masonry infrastructure pipe built in the world? Like
is
that
that
was the way
right?
it was done for
Oh yeah,
millennium, and then
oh
it
yeah,
moved to steel
yeah. Even
and plastics.
before that, it was probably wood in terms of smaller
Yeah.
pipe, which is
So
hard to
this was
believe.
like built in place bricks from
Yeah,
the bricks were actually sourced here along the LA River
yeah,
and built and then laid in the ground, old school, like 2,000-year-old kind of technology.
yeah, yeah. Well, there were a lot of brickyards. There's stuff on the internet about that. There was one right there across from the what I call the Naval Academy or the Fire Department Training Center on Chavez Ravine Road and Stadium Way. But there were others all around. The most famous one was in Montebello, uh, and all Mexican, and they would recruit from certain Mexican towns. And there was a kind of a company-owned brickyard company. I think it was called Simon, and you'll see Simon bricks, here and there, uh, and people collect those bricks. Actually, I mean, it's really I think a nice hobby to get
Yeah,
involved with. So it's
it's
amazing that you have these bricks.
it is, and it's something special to sort of see the handmade aspect of like baked earth
Yeah,
that carried our water from one place to another. Like
right,
that's such a kind of very deep idea of baking the earth in order to move water,
right, right.
and
Well, I
so
know
so old.
Lily and her friend Larry Bouette have done all this research about the three communities up there, and I mean, going way, way back, the Brickyard and those communities. I was born too late. I mean, when I was growing up, we kind of knew. I mean, all those homes had been removed already. But actually, one other story tidbit about Solano. This won't take long.
Oh, please,
Uh,
these are
the
important stories.
the uh, school principal here for a long time was a woman named Sophia T. Salvin. Wonderful Jewish woman. Wore a lot of costume jewelry, very elegant. But she was committed to helping the disabled special needs kids. And she was the principal at the Palo Verde school. And when that school closed, and maybe even before that, she was the joint principal of both schools. So when they buried you probably read that there's a school that's buried underneath the parking lot over there.
Yeah.
Those kids were bused over here. So I know some of the families whose homes were the last holdouts there, the Colons and others, uh, through that experience. There was another guy, a teacher, Natividad Vasio, who also, there are photos of him in some of the collections. He was a teacher there. He brought Mexican culture, dances and everything, not only to that school, but to our school here at Solano. In the late
Wow.
50s, we celebrated the Posadas, Cinco de Mayo, Mexican Independence Day, all of those things. I even remember when Hawaii became a state in 1959, we had a Hawaiian themed program here. And of course, for Christmas, the Posadas, we reenacted that whole thing. No one was too concerned about separation of state and religion then, but it was really a great time. Anyway, he was a bit actor and a director. He brought George Reeves, who was the original Superman, to Solano in 1954. I have a newsletter from Solano where his picture is there with some kids with Mr. Vasio. And he was on like My Father Knows Best, The Magnificent Seven, and Superman, and one other kind of program. So we would be watching TV and we'd say, hey, there he is on Father Knows Best as as a gardener, of course.
Oh God.
You know, we're talking about stereotyping in the industry.
Oh my
So,
God.
but I think that Solano probably still has that nurturing kind of effect, the parental involvement and all that. I mean, I would go
Yeah, and I think
for,
like it really brings up something that's at the root of the collaboration with Fausto, our vendor, in
yeah,
delivering ice cream, which is the celebration of democracy that you're talking about,
yeah, I
was
saw that.
part of part of your youth there, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
that you saw pageantry and fun around citizenship,
yeah,
and it was hybridized with like cultural connection with being Mexican or being
right.
Jewish, because I
Yeah,
know that Solano Canyon also has a big Jewish history. I believe the
yes,
first Jewish graveyard in the city of Los
right
Angeles
there,
is
right by
in
the
Solano
pilot
Canyon.
training. Yeah, the marker's no longer there, but I lived one summer right next to it. I said, "What is this?" And the Calvary Cemetery was where the Pasadena Freeway is. So we're Cathedral High School, the Phantoms. I mean that they moved the bodies that they found anyway over to the new Calvary over in East LA. So I mean, there's a rich history here. I think
Yeah,
about it all the time as I drive around and I see different things that really make me think about how lucky I was to grow up here. And
yeah,
the main reason I think I attribute to my being so positive really was the teachers here. They always encouraged me. Nobody ever said, "Oh, you can't do that" or whatever. They always sort of encouraged me to do better, uh, to speak up, and all of that, those things. So I was very lucky to get on the right track early and never to fall off the tracks.
yeah. And also, how did you end up like figuring out that law and legal study was,
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I intended to go to business school when I graduated from Yale. I actually went to Harvard Business School for 6 weeks. I was 21 years old. I was way too young to be in that environment with coats and ties and people who had been out in the field for 3 or 4 years. But I met guys there who were having a good time. So I said, I'm going to take a couple of years off and come back somewhere. I got tired of being on the East Coast for 4 years, so I
right?
decided to go to Stanford. But it was kind of an afterthought. Most of the not know most, but at least half of the young men from Yale either went to med school, business school, or law school. It was unless you're going to become a professor or something. So you're
Yeah,
kind of like, okay. And then remember, it was at the time of the Vietnam War, 1970. I mean, Nixon resigned, in 74? So it was like the time really to start thinking about what you were going to do. I mean, I actually even considered going to officers training school in case I got drafted. But in
So
69, I was part of the last uh, lottery, and maybe they only did it 2 or 3 times. I had a high number, so I never got drafted.
it's interesting to hear you talk about this because it feels like there's some kind of parallel to what young people might be going through now, where the
Yeah,
world is changing so radically, and you
fast, much
have to
faster.
sort of think about like how to position yourself, where to position yourself,
Yeah, yeah,
what's the role of expanding your horizons if your community needs you, like how do you
right.
balance all of that?
Yeah, it's important to do that. I think sadly, not enough young people think that way. I mean, they think differently, different objectives, but I think they'll end up okay. I always tell people or young students, really just explore as much as you can as an undergraduate. You know, don't like. I mean, the pre-meds get so stressed out.
Yeah.
So I never thought of becoming a lawyer until later. Never thought of becoming a judge. So my life has been just a series of serendipitous events. Right person, right timing. They're looking for someone like me, and I tell them, you know, when the door opens, you've got to be ready, and the doors
Hmm.
will open.
So so what would you tell people about this election? How would you,
Well,
knowing what you know, encourage mobilization of the vote today?
yeah, well, one of my former law clerks was leaving for Nevada tomorrow. I mean, he can do that and spend some time passing out what do they call it? Leaflet dropping at doors, no contact, and manning the phones and so forth. And you really want to do something active. But really, then just out here, just talking to people, relatives, and being informed about the propositions, of course, the presidential election. Uh,
What can you
I
tell
think
people? What can you tell local people about what propositions, in your opinion, they should look
uh,
out for?
there are about four of them. One dealing with taxing commercial property on a par with residential property. The Uber situation, independent contractor versus employee. Uh, what's the okay? There are a couple of more, but I'm being given the signal here
Okay.
for people in line. Anyway, it's nice talking to you.
Thank you so much, and it's thank you
Oh,
for all your service to your
and
community.
kudos
And
to Lily and to Sara, who are two of the most well organized and persistent and diligent activists in the canyon.
absolutely.